from the forest. It's you.
With the last echo of the last bell, the last stroke of midnight.
Wait!
The spell will be broken.
Are you looking for this? Must be quite a story to go with it.
I'm curious if the experience of working on this film and Thor were sort of similar in two ways. One, it's obviously an original tale that has to fit into a larger framework, Cinderella, Disney fairy tales, Thor, Marvel Cinematic Universe. And if the studios are sort of similar in terms of how collaborative / how much freedom they give Marvel and his parent company, Disney.
I think that when you're making pictures like this, you really have to be clear as a filmmaker the kind of movie you think you're making, and they need to be clear about the kind of movie they think they want. And in both cases, that was clear. I mean, it was a little simpler with Cinderella, in as much as the script was a little more firmly developed than it had been in the case of Thor. But there was still a tremendous sense of the tonal requirements that were there for both pictures. And in a way, they both had parallels in as much as a fantastical or heightened world had to somehow be blended in with observing characters who needed to be recognizable, not pantomimic. In one, you got people riding over rainbow bridges in space. You need to care about those people, even if that can seem a bit daft. But if you find it visually spectacular, then maybe you don't find it daft. You find it exciting and escapist. And Cinderella, well, we had to take the audience to the ball, and everybody just needed to be on the same page about what that was going to be conveyed like. And in both cases, I'd say the collaboration was really strong and good.
One of the things I really enjoyed about this was that though it obviously fits within sort of the Disney classic telling of this story, that there were some interesting new themes that came out. And I really like the idea that in order to fulfill your destiny, you have to drop your artifice and present yourself. So can you talk about that a little bit? Were you guys pointedly looking for kind of new elements for the story to pull out?
I think that new things came out naturally, and one of the things that is part of the sort of legacy of Cinderella is maybe that the story can rely a little overly on magic, external magic, and although, you know, good karma, good fortune can come our way sometimes, it seems as though we can make it quite a lot ourselves, or at least make every passing moment as rich as it can be, just whatever that might turn out to be, because you know, enjoy the sunshine, or you enjoy the company of the person you're with, or whatever. And Cinderella could be an example of that, and not be winsome, and not be sort of sappy or saccharine, but somebody who has a good sense of herself and how to be right there in the moment. And that moment was not about waiting for a prince, and it was not about passively accepting cruelty, but asking some questions about it and reacting to it.
Was it an interesting challenge for you to kind of bring this into a contemporary era when there is that association with Cinderella, like the Cinderella complex and things like that?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a challenge to, and an enjoyable challenge to, make an uncynical film is without presenting a character who's stupid. You know, happiness isn't stupid in my experience of sometimes having it and sometimes observing it. It's a it requires great emotional intelligence and great openness, and but to be able to do that with a lightness of touch and not seem po-faced or self-righteous or sanctimonious or pious or any of those things was going to be dependent on the style of the movie, still delivering on the fun stuff, you know, mice and carriages and pumpkins, but allowing the performances to legitimately from the depths that the fairy tale just touches on, because it's full of recognizable human dynamics, letting the characters be a little more real, a little more psychologically truthful, even if they were living in a heightened world. All of that felt like we could end up being quite revolutionary from the inside.
Did you pick particular moments to harken back to the animated classic, or and then other particular moments to go, okay, this is where we're really going to contemporize it? It felt kind of integrated to me throughout, but...
Well, we really felt that we were not so much... occasionally we would tip our hat to the 1950 animated classic movie, but there have been lots of other Cinderellas and lots of other illustrated Cinderellas, amazing additions, and we looked at those as well. So we were looking for a sort of style that delivered you immersively into the fairy tale world, where you could feel the textures, the colors, the paintings, the dancing, the natural world, everything about it you felt you could taste, smell, see. in relation to that 1950 film, when Cinderella's dress is ripped and she is at her lowest point, you'll find that if you compared the two films, you'd probably see an approximation of a shot that appears in the original movie that we play, which is far away over Cinderella's shoulder as she weeps at this well, in our case, at her lowest point. And we just learned from the original movie that you could give that some time. The audience need to feel for a bit longer maybe than they expect to, that maybe it isn't going to go, maybe it's not going to turn out to work out. And we almost need to see her spirit broken before, you know, her fairy godmother really does step in. So there, and in a few other places, we looked to the original, but we mostly found our own way of presenting a classical world inside which was a sort of contemporary human dynamic.
I always forgot. Remember, the magic will only last so long. With the last echo of the last bell, at the last stroke of midnight, the spell will be broken, and all will return to what it was before.
Midnight.
Midnight.
That's more than enough